Welcome back to Portfolio Players, presented by E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. I'm Dan Roberts here at FOS in New York, and I've got the two-time Super Bowl champion, Logan Ryan. Super Bowl champion turned tech investor, fair to say?
Yeah.
And analyst for CBS.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, man.
Man, I appreciate the opportunity.
Let's start with CBS. Let's start with becoming a broadcaster, and pretty new to it.
Yep.
You know, we got one season under the belt here. And it's funny because on one hand, I feel like a lot of NFL guys, that's sort of, not the assumption, but the goal is I want to be on TV. Doesn't necessarily work out for everyone long term.
Yeah.
How is that going? And to what extent are you building up business interests on the side, just in case the rest of your life isn't a broadcast career?
Well, you know, for me, like TV is a second career. And I think a lot of guys, when they come from the NFL, they assume because they played, that they're naturally going to be good at TV, or they can just show up and do the job. And like we know with any career, like if you don't put the time in, that gets found out really quickly. And the TV money, because of Tom Brady's of the world, again, helping us out, and Tony Romo's of the world has skyrocketed. So now every player wants to get into it. So the supply is huge, right? But demand doesn't change. And that's what I learned. There's only so many chairs to call a game, right? They're not creating Fox, CBS isn't creating. They might have 7 booths this year, 6 booths. They're not creating 9, 10 because Logan Ryan wants to call a game. So you have to take somebody's job. You have to be better than outwork somebody to be in that spot. And I love that competitive aspect of it. I'm like addicted to competition. I think that's what playing did for me. And I think when you retire, you kind of miss that. And I think TV has fulfilled that. It's like, all right, I want to outwork this guy. I want to show how good I am. I want to put the homework in, and then when you call a game, you're on the site, you're there, you're live, you're getting adrenaline, you're doing kickoff, and then I like doing live TV, right? Because the cameras are rolling, and if you make a mistake, you got to be able to get back on track, and people are going to judge you, but not everyone can do it, not everyone's comfortable with it, and not everyone's want to put the work in. So to me, my rookie year on TV was better than my rookie year playing. I think I'm going to be better in TV than I am as a player. And I had a heck of a rookie year. I had a pretty good rookie year if you look at the stats. So I led the Patriots in picks as a rookie. So for me to say my TV year was better just means how much confidence I have in myself in this.
A lot of former Patriots guys who have succeeded in TV. You got Brewski. I'm sure you've talked to Devin and Jason McCourty about TV.
Yep.
Gronk is on TV. You mentioned Brady, of course. Yep. I mean, what do you make of his first year? Because, of course, a lot of pressure because of who he is.
Yeah. You
mentioned the money, giant contract. Mm-hmm. It's a 10-year deal. Mm-hmm. And he's putting in the work and the research. But, you know, it's Tom Brady, so he's going to be heavily, heavily scrutinized. And what I always say about this is like, look, just because someone was a great football player, obviously, doesn't mean they're going to be great and charismatic and natural on TV.
Yeah, the two don't have to coincide. What you need to do in TV isn't exactly what you needed to be great at football. You know, you have to be able to process in football and understand to have success. In TV, that is similar, but you got to get it out much quicker, and you got to be entertaining, and you can't. There's a lot of rules to it. What Tom is doing is it's never been done, having the GOAT of their sport commentate game to game. So we see, you know, I don't see Tiger Woods commentating the Masters. I don't see Wayne Not yet. I don't see Wayne Gretzky commentating hockey games week in and week out. I never saw Michael Jordan commentating 82 basketball games. We've never seen the greatest do that. We've seen guys do a halftime hit. You know, we might see Shaq and Chuck and those guys at halftime, but calling the games is a big leap because you're up for so much scrutiny. You're going to make a mistake in 3 hours of people listening to your voice. So I thought he got better throughout the year. I know everybody was blown away by his work ethic and just his personality. He's a really good dude. So I think he got better. I enjoyed him, doing the Super Bowl. And if I know Tom, I know he's going to put the work in to improve.
You think it's a conflict that he owns a piece of the Raiders?
I think that could be a little bit of a conflict. I think that's a nice problem to have. I mean, that's something I'm sure we'll talk about. Those are problems I'm trying to have.
Yeah.
When it comes to private equity and stuff like that, that's an intriguing thing that the NFL is allowing some of these equity groups to get in. So those are billionaire privilege problems that Tom has.
Yeah, you're doing my job for me because I want to ask about the rising investment in the NFL and not just private equity, but the idea now that every athlete wants to own a piece of a team. And it seems like maybe any team. I mean, we've had guys in there and they own a piece of a pickleball team or they own a piece of a horse racing team. And of course, sports was always a good investment. It's not like everyone woke up suddenly and realized this. But in the last 2 or 3 years, it seems to me like we've hit an inflection point where everyone, not just current pro athletes, recently retired pro athletes, celebrities and actors, wants to buy a piece of a sports team. What do you think has changed?
I think it's just the sexiest thing to do. I think it's fun to have a little part of an owner's suite and you sit back and you watch. And for the most part, we know NFL, NBA, those franchises are not going to go down. I mean, those assets are only going to skyrocket. You see the sale of the Celtics was huge. So what are the Patriots worth? What are the Cowboys worth? They're probably over $10 billion. So if you can get a piece of that, that money is always going to go up. It's a great investment. It's just hard to get a piece of that because the price is going up. So I think everybody wants to do that. I mean, why not? I'm trying to do that. I'm really interested in the soccer space. My son's a soccer player. He's 6. He's really good. We love watching international soccer, European soccer. We're trying to watch U.S. soccer. We got to get a little better there. He's coming.
Yeah.
Where he'll be ready in 10 years to help that scene out. But I was really interested in investing in a French soccer team last year. But then talked to ownership, planning flights out. We really did my research. And you're going to learn about me. I do my research about everything I invest in. And the league rights, the TV deal came in much lower than the clubs had anticipated, because part of that is Mbappe, a generational star in France, goes over to La Liga in Spain. So with that happens, we know what the NFL TV deals go up, and that's why the salary cap goes up, and that's why players get more from time to time, but the game is growing. Soccer, the game is growing, but there's so many different leagues. So with that that TV deal not coming, the investment didn't make sense for me now. So now I'm looking at teams in Mexico, teams in Spain, getting a small percentage of multiple teams, being part of groups like that. So it's really fun opportunities. And now being a former NFL player, now I can look at NFL teams and see if I can get a stake of something there, which is something I obviously know a lot about, is being part of successful NFL teams. So I do have some insight on what a dynasty looks like and what might we work and what a locker room looks like, from the 53rd man to the rookie to the captain and the leader, the guy based in the stadium. So those are opportunities I'm always looking for.
Man, there's so much there when you talk about soccer, because it does feel like, and nothing's ever easy, nothing's ever cheap, but it feels like soccer is big enough and vast enough outside the US that is where a lot of people who want to get a start with owning something in sports are starting. I mentioned pickleball earlier. That's a much smaller scale, but in terms of soccer, now the drawback, one of our guests was in here saying there's relegation. And you can put your money into a team and try and be present, help them. And then you can only control so much. You can't control how they do on the field.
Yep.
And if they lose enough and they get relegated, now you're throwing more money at it, spending to get them back. So that's a pitfall. And then, as you mentioned, another pitfall, of course, media rights and streaming and media rights is such a huge influence now on the valuations of teams and on the investing process.
Absolutely. And with relegation, there's promotion. So you look at Ryan Reynolds and Wrexham and what they're doing. I heard they purchased another team recently in Mexico, I believe. And they took a team where they were up a couple leagues. And now we have a TV show behind it, and we love that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff where it goes right. And like any investment, there's some where it goes bad, like based on league rights and stuff. Mbappe, a generational talent, switches countries. And where he plays, he has those options. You have Saudi Arabia offering billion-dollar contracts. But I know that soccer, football, they call it, is the world sport. If you look at some of our top NFL athletes and our followers on social platforms, I mean, their top stars probably 30x that.
Yeah.
I think Ronaldo has a couple more than Brady. I think Messi has probably more than any NFL player combined. So it's just the world sport. There's so much interest there. And I do spend time in some other countries. I do spend some time in London, and you're not going to see Logan Ryan highlights on the TV in London. I promise you that. So it's just things that I'm opening up my mind to and learning about. And I even think the growth in U.S. soccer with Messi coming over here has been massive, with us hosting a World Cup pretty soon, us hosting the Club World Cup in MetLife in America pretty soon. I know that the U.S. is really interested in fixing our soccer scene and putting money into it for the kids to find the right path, because we're hosting these world tournaments pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah, when you talk about considering investing in a French soccer team, it didn't work out. What's the direction of flow here in terms of you actively sending out feelers? You've got your investment guys you use, and versus people coming to you and they know about Logan Ryan and they see some of the other stuff you're doing. And what's kind of the investment process for you right now?
So I'll break it down on a macro level. Investing, if any athletes listening on how I do it, is you got to understand the difference between liquid and non-liquid, right? And liquid is something that I can sell today, get cash on hand from it today or tomorrow. So that's obviously my savings, my cash, my savings. That's obviously my stocks and my bonds. And I think everybody should invest in that, should know that. That's any financial advisor can do some stocks, some bonds, they're safe. Stocks go up, stocks go down, bonds go up, bonds go down. Some are safe, some not safe, but with a good balance and a good advisor, you should, yield somewhat of a return there, right? And that's always important. 65% of what I do is liquid. The majority of what I do would always be liquid, in my opinion. And then my non-liquid assets, now you're getting into, my venture capitalism. You're getting into my own personal properties. I have multiple homes. You're getting into my commercial real estate. I invest in apartment complexes and real estate deals and stuff like that. You get into the fun stuff. We talk about the venture capitalism, the tech companies. Those are the sexy ones. Those are the big booms. Those are but
also big busts.
Big busts, right? And that's something that I've studied a lot, learned a lot over the last couple of years, and started to handpick and get to know those ones because they can hit big. That's a small percentage of what I do, right? And then you talk about private credit, where I'm loaning money out to companies. I don't get any equity, but I get a large return. I get a 12% at least interest in a private credit deal, which is something I didn't know much about earlier in my career. So I balance all those things out, but I use my own personal platform. I use my face on TV. I use my knowledge as an NFL player, my social media platform to get better deals in my venture capital deals and my private equity deals to try to get some ownership in a team. My brand, my name, my likeness, that brings me, an extra point here and there if I can get that deal, that private deal at the right price point.
You mentioned your name, brand, and likeness. I have to ask about NIL, which was on my mental list. I mean, you played at Rutgers. Of course, you missed this boom. And do you look back now and you think, I missed that window? Like, what could I have done in terms of sponsorships, ads, even just getting paid to give my autograph? And what do you make of how this space has exploded now?
I mean, I think we all see it. I think there's a natural, envy. Like, man, these kids are touching a lot of money. And we obviously paved the way for that. I mean, we were lucky. We had to join a lawsuit to get like $500 like 10 years later to be NCAA or whatever. Right. So I probably lost money playing at Rutgers, how broke I was there. But it's just how things go. My biggest question to people that have problems with these kids getting this money is that who was getting it before? If there's $20 million to go to a college roster, if there's $3 million to go to a quarterback, if there's $10 million to go to a Michigan quarterback, who was getting that money before? Who was getting the 10 millions, the 20 millions off the Michigan winning? Who was making the money off of, Johnny Manziel? Obviously Reggie Bush. I mean, they might have got a few dollars, but that's not the millions. They weren't getting that. So that's always my question is, I don't like when people make skin off of someone else's back, so I'm proud of the work we've done to pave the way so these guys can get paid. And I don't think money always changes people. I think it exposes what they really are. And if you get money in college and don't want to work at that next level, when you get to the NFL, just like TV, it's another career, and you got to start back at the bottom and you got to work for a job. And because you have $1 million or after taxes and paying your, some agent 20% of the deal they got you, if $600,000 at 21 years old is going to derail your NFL career, then you weren't going to make it anyway. There's enough distractions there. So money kind of gets in the way of a lot of people. And so if your priorities aren't right, you're not going to make it anyway. So I just think, hey, if you have some dollars in college, that helps your family out, that helps you out. Shoot, why not? If your jersey's worth buying, sell it. I don't have no issue with that.
Yeah, I remember you paid off your brother's student loans years ago. I remember seeing a story about that. The other thing that NIL is resulting in is that they're conscious of and engaging in business at a much, much, much younger age.
Yeah.
There's a shift there. I mean, how early in your career were you thinking about, call it the second career, call it, everyone says NFL, not for long. So how early did you start trying to plan for post-NFL?
Well, I think big picture, I think there's 3 goals of every NFL athlete. And these can, vary in order. But I think, no particular order. The first one is get as many contracts as you can. Generational wealth. This is probably one of your biggest earning opportunities of your life. You've been working for 20 years to get to this opportunity to earn. So try to get generational wealth. Big rookie deal, first round draft pick, or multiple contracts, whatever you got to do. Like, this is your time to get that. You got to do that. You also got to balance that with, I believe, the pursuit of winning championships. So obviously getting paid, winning championships. And then the third step is something I had to come to throughout my career is finding a way, if I accomplish those first two, to walk away happy, spiritually, mentally, healthy, with that money in my pocket, moving on. Because if I play a sport and I have to retire what I do at 30 years old, I have 50 more years to live, 40 more years to live. With our bodies, who knows, right? And our brains, who knows? We don't necessarily know right now. But I have a lot more years to live, hopefully, and I can't sell it all in the first 30 years. I don't enjoy the back 9 here. So how do I walk away with this with my, on my 2 feet, with my head on straight, with my family, and can go right off into the sunset a little bit. So those are always my 3 goals. When I played for the New York Giants, I don't know if you read this story, but we had a ectopic pregnancy, and we lost a baby, and my wife almost died in the hospital. And I was in year of my career, that was probably year 9 or 10. And that's when I woke up, when I almost lost my wife. I had 2 young kids at home. My wife was in the hospital, had multiple procedures. They saved her life, lost a baby. But she was in the hospital for 4 weeks. So I was raising my kids, trying to see my wife. It was during COVID, couldn't really even go to the hospital. So I was handling a lot. And I always appreciated Joe Judge for understanding that as a man that, he allowed me to play in the game. Sometimes I couldn't even go to practice. Sometimes I was driving my kids to South Jersey where my parents live, an hour and a half, and then coming up to Montclair or coming up to MetLife, at 6 a.m. or coming back at midnight, putting my kids to bed in South Jersey, driving up the turnpike, getting home at 1 a.m., waking up 5 hours out for practice. So he really understood, like, hey, you got to take care of your family first. And if you play, you play. And I didn't miss a game, but he allowed me to kind of take that leisure to protect my family. But that's when I realized, I was probably on the verge of signing my second $30+ million contract. So I probably was making $65 million at that point, where I was like, okay, what's the game here? Because if I walk out of this without my wife, I don't know how I can do this on my own anyway. So I started looking like, hey, I want to get to 10 years, or at the end of this contract, I'm going to start looking to move on to what's next. And TV felt naturally to me. I was a talker on the field. Everybody says, the cliche is, I'm not a vocal leader, I lead by action. Well, I lead by action, and I was vocal. Yeah. So I was demanding at practice. I broke the team down pregame. And then when you play for the New York Giants and you're a captain, you're going to be in front of that podium every single day answering tough questions when you're 4-12. So I kind of had to get grilled. And when you host a show on WFAN, you have to talk to fans every Tuesday, you kind of get used to that. So I've always had a radio show. I was talking, always was trying to, spread light on the game, educate the fan, and try to bring some entertainment to it. Think before I speak. So TV just came naturally. I took my production meetings, like in the NFL, they pick a player the night before the game, or the quarterback normally, a captain on defense, the coaches, to talk, the production meeting. Now I do it. And the analyst, Tony Romo or whoever is like, hey man, so how was practice? What are you thinking? How are you gonna guard Tyreek Hill? What's the game plan there? You've been having a couple sacks, any blitzes, anything you'd like to share? And I would go in there and be very open, honest, candid, and engaged. And then when I retired from the NFL, a bunch of networks reached out and were like, hey, you were so good at production meetings, we want to hire you. Come audition or come this and that. And I didn't realize those production meetings that for us is 15 minutes of our time after practice. You're like, oh, okay, I'll go talk to those guys. And Belichick and Mike Vrabel tell you better not say a word about our game plan. So now you're trying to balance what you say and can't say. That led to some TV deals.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like being a part of a company, in a business and having that
you never
role,
know who's watching,
Yeah, exactly right. Let's talk about tech a little bit. Earlier you said the sexy investments in tech, high risk, high reward. You've been in a couple names we all know, Oura Ring and some of these other startups. I mean, what do you think it is right now about consumer-facing tech that's so exciting, especially at athletes? Is it that, this is a company I know because I've used the product, although usually if you're really getting in early at the ground floor, like it's not yet a known household brand yet. So talk to me about that.
A lot of my favorite investments are true. We got them early startups. And obviously I lean on a team here. My financial team is based in Silicon Valley, San Francisco. And I chose that for a reason because they're really in tap with the tech. And I wanted to get more tech heavy in my portfolio. I want to invest in products that I feel like, one, we're going to in the future. Like I'm looking ahead, not behind, obviously. And two, are going to help people. Like, I think we probably all say that, but those are things that I'm honestly looking for. Like, one I'm super excited about is Proto, which is hologram communication technology. So obviously we're all FaceTiming, we're all Zooming. Well, now there's a company that can beam you in the room. You can have a device where you're a hologram in the room, so my kids can see the grandparents. I buy one for my grandparents, and they can talk to my kids. And my kids are standing on a camera, on a phone, and on that side, they're in my grandparents' living room.
I'd still rather have you like in the flesh right here.
Absolutely. But now you're talking about me and you can do this. I could be on my couch in Tampa and we could have did this interview, right? And you're talking about entertainment, you're talking about telehealth with doctors and medical. Right now, a doctor can see a lot more patients maybe that way. So I think this is the future. We've seen some of the hologram in concerts, right? Tupac had something that's pretty cool. But I think that stuff's definitely looking in the future. I'm looking at House Lab is something I'm invested in. And cosmetic, that's a cosmetic brand, a makeup brand. And you see what Rihanna's doing with Fenty. You see what some of these cosmetic is $1 billion, $1 trillion industry. But very on brand for me, Lady Gaga's brand is she's the face behind it. It's animal cruelty-free testing. Yep. I'm big into animal welfare. Yeah. So they do not test on any animals and it's vegan. So everything is super healthy, super safe. They're not, gonna be testing on whatever they do to those animals. I don't think we need to do that to make makeup. So that's something that I'm partnering behind and getting behind her and that mission because that's something I believe in. We talked about the Oura Ring earlier, just health and fitness tracking, your sleep and am I getting enough steps and whatever your goals are. It's a simple thing. You put a ring on, you don't really think about it. It's not like I gotta put this Apple Watch on, but then I want to wear a suit and I want to wear my Apple Watch. So it's just a way that ring can kind of go with everything.
Not as heavy as the 2 Super Bowl rings.
No. Yeah,
I thought you'd wear those today.
They're kind of a distraction. The Oura Ring's a little more sleek than those. Those are kind of showstoppers. And I'm from New Jersey, so I know enough not to walk around with too much in New York. I understand this. I have enough street smarts about me that I'm not going to wear Patriot Super Bowl rings in New York. But yeah, I do have those too. So those are just some of the companies where I think, and then AI.
I was just about, I want to ask you about is OpenAI, yeah.
OpenAI, and I'm heavily invested in that. I think that's the future, obviously. AI is doing everything. I'm behind on it. If you're a kid right now and you're not studying AI as much as you're studying math and writing, I mean, you're probably not gonna have the best job you can have in 10 years. I mean, that's clearly the future. So those are stuff that we've been getting on. We have cryptocurrency investments where we, not only just Bitcoin or this, that, I don't know what the next thing is, but the technology that processes that, right? So these are things that we're taking, shots at now that we hope in 5-10 years, it's like, oh, these are huge booms. These are Ubers. These are things that are just gonna blow it out the water.
You just need a couple.
Just need a couple, yeah. And I think when I kind of mix it with the liquid, 65% of this, and I do have some commercial real estate because real estate's always a great investment. I was told and I'm learning about, I do some private credit. It's all at a percentage where some of these can miss, but if one of these hits, it takes my portfolio. And my goal, anybody's goal, when we talk about generational wealth as an athlete, is enough money where you can live off your interest. So I'm not that, so all that money in the bank.
Gronk got a lot of press for that.
Gronk did not touch his playing career. Now Gronk's making a lot of money off the field now. Not everyone is Gronk, not every guy is Gronk, and Gronk can do that, but that Gronk's really smart. So me, it's just living at whatever that portfolio makes me a year, whatever that interest is making on that 65% that's in the bank, that is what I'm living on. That is my budget. That's why I did not take a private jet here, because I'm not trying to touch the majority that's in the market. I'm not trying to touch the majority of the money I made in my career that is sitting in the bank, and I'm only living on the interest. And that's where I budget my life. That's me and my wife come off our vacation budgets. And I could be a multimillionaire that played 11 years in the NFL and been making $1 million since I was 21. But me and my wife still live in a way that whatever that portfolio allows us to live, that's what we're cutting out and that's what we're doing. And that way, that always keeps growing. And I get more, 6% a year or 8% a year or whatever. And that grows and grows. My budget goes up. And then my kids and whatever I want to do with it, a lot of animals will be helped with a large sum of money that's been growing in a pot for a while.
To what extent do NFL guys actually talk about all this stuff? Are you like in the locker room talking to each other about your investment approach, your endorsement deals? You see a guy in a new ad and kind of tease him for it?
Well, I would, it's not talked about at all, if not enough. Definitely not enough, if at all. I mean, you might get the rookie, get a financial advisor and let them, but what I've learned is I swapped financial advisors throughout my career. I believe investing in things to allow you to have more time, right? So I invest in someone to cut my lawn because I don't feel like cutting my lawn. And that's a good investment for me because I don't have to do it. I allow a chef or whatever to make food so my wife doesn't, or I don't have to take the time to do that. We can get to certain, I believe in health and fitness, obviously. So I believe in something, a pool guy or whatever, but I believe in a financial advisor, but I'm gonna have to know why, and I'm gonna know how it looks so it's done right. I gotta know, so if the pool guy's not doing it right, I gotta know something about my pool so I can be like, hey, this is not good enough. I gotta know something about my lawn. You know, my dad had me cutting lawns growing up. So I have to know something about my lawn to say, hey, this is not it. So I have to know something enough about my financial advisor and why I'm investing in these things. I have to know the why. And I think in football, they can tell you, hey, if there's 30 seconds left and the team has no timeouts, make sure you stay outside leverage because we don't want them getting out of bounds. Right?
Situational.
I have to know why. Okay, they have no timeout. So if I tackle them inbounds, the game's over. I don't have to go break that pass up. I'd rather him catch it and tackle him inbounds so I know why. The game will be over, we will win, right? Some players just know the plays. They just know what they're told to do. But the more you learn the why, the better football player you're gonna be. The more you know the why about your money, why am I invested 65% in liquid? Why not more? Why not less? Why am I not 100% in venture capitalism, right? That's kind of risky, right? I have to know why. So when my financial advisor and I are having these calls, I understand what's going on. I can say, well, why are we doing that? No, I don't want to do that. I think that's too risky. I think I'd rather do this. Let's do more real estate. So you used to take the time and learn the why. I think the more you know the why, and I don't know if players want to put the time in, but they need to, because it doesn't matter how much you make. It only matters how much you save. So I could sign this huge contract and I can learn about taxes, right? I can learn about us having to pay a different tax in every state we play in and all that crazy stuff. But if I'm spending 90% of it, then it doesn't matter if I made 10 million last year, I've made 1 million. If I'm only going to walk away with 99% of it spent, you know, if I made 10 million bucks and spent 990,000, or I made $1 million bucks and spent 600,000, the millionaire guy who made $1 million is worth more money.
Yeah.
So it's all about how much you spend.
That's good advice for current players too. Logan, let's end on this. What do you think people get wrong when they talk about NFL players in business and NFL players and their money, the fans? And it's obviously a fascination for the public, what NFL guys are up to off the field.
I mean, I think it's always gonna be a stereotype. You know, I think the headlines of what we do bad sells a lot more stories than the ones we do good. You know, if you're accused, it's an ESPN ticker, but if you're wrongfully accused, it's not the same ticker. So I think it's obvious you get the bad apples, you get the assumptions that all you guys do is spend money on jewelry, or all you guys do is party, or all you guys do is go broke because you're so reckless. And I think there's just such a financial illiteracy of all teenagers, of all 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, and our average career is 3 years. So guys are coming to the league at 22, they're retiring by 25. So all 25-year-olds don't know enough about finances, in my opinion, not just football players. So I think that's a problem we have in our schooling. I don't think we teach it enough. And I don't know if guys know who to ask or what questions to ask without feeling dumb. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception. It's not just an athlete problem, it's a youth problem.
Yeah, maybe we cleared some up today.
Hope so.
Logan, thanks so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Great stuff.